Welcome to Reveal and Heal Podcast Live. I'm Coach Deb. Reveal and Heal, new week, new goals. We have a special guest today. Actually, it's Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is the sister to Dexter Jones. We had him as a guest, and he was something else. You know, we talked about that sweating chocolate, honey, that beautiful smile. Yes, he's running for school council, and of course, yes, oh yes, he's an amazing guy. He's doing a whole lot for the community. You know, our topic is still. It takes a village, a communal effort, and Erin Jones, she brings a lot to the table. Let me just tell you a little bit about her before I bring in my co-host. Erin M. Jones is a native of Cartersville, Georgia. Growing up in a vibrant Southern community, she developed a passion for and commitment to service that meets others' needs and ushers in positive transformational change, taught to her by her parents, the late Louis and Dolores Jones. This passion and unwavering commitment to service can be seen through her work as a social worker for Northwest Georgia and the Metro Atlanta area. Now, of course, I'm going to allow Erin to come in shortly to share the things that she's doing because she's doing a whole lot. But y'all, help me welcome my co-host for the day, Lady Ashley.
Hey guys, I'm so glad to be here with you tonight, this morning, having this great conversation. I hope that you all will get something out of what is going to be said. You are in for a treat because Erin has so much to offer. So I'm excited to dive in.
Excellent. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, Facebook Live, please follow us on social media platforms such as Deborah Bryant Montgomery, Relationship Lounge, and also Instagram. And of course, we're going to also have Erin to share with you how you can follow her as well. And Lady Ashley, of course, you can follow her on Ashley Rogers. That would be Facebook. Is that right?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Ashley Rogers on Facebook or Be Unique Styles on Facebook, also on Instagram, Be Unique Styles as well.
Excellent. Okay, so what we're going to do is dive in. I'm so excited. You were recommended, Erin, by Margaret Conley, and that's Dr. Margaret to me. She is just absolutely fabulous. I love her. She's not only family, but she is such a brilliant woman of God. And man, I tell you, she just have you like this. You know, every word that drips out of her mouth. So let me start the questions off. First of all, tell the great people who you are and what you do.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Erin Jones. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I was recently licensed as that about a month ago. I've been licensed though as a therapist. Licensed as a therapist since 2011 in the state of Georgia. So my background or my niches in therapy are definitely grief and loss, anxiety, depression, perfectionism, like different types of trauma. I deal with a lot. My career has spanned, like 12, 15 years or so. I've been with the Department of Family and Children's Service. I've been with the Department of Juvenile Justice, but the majority of my career has been spent in hospice as a social worker. I'm currently with Wellstar Hospice, and I have my own initiative for mental health, own company, hopefully private practice at some point, called Epiphany Concepts. So, you know, my big thrust, one of many, but the primary thing is, especially my heart really goes out for the African American community. That will start to normalize going to therapy. That is good for us. It's healthy for us. We, of all people, have a lot of trauma just from, you know, growing up Black in the United States.
Right.
And, you know, we weren't slaves necessarily, but all of those actions still impact us today.
Yes.
It impacts our policy today, how things are done today. And we can still see that as we, you know, watch the news or watch social media or whatever the case. So that's a big part, is just to normalize that it's okay to talk to a professional about, you know, it's good. I follow an amazing licensed clinical social worker as well. Her name is Dr. Anita Phillips, and she's affiliated with Bishop Jakes, Sarah Jakes Roberts. And she says, you know, prayer, therapy is a strategy, but prayer is a weapon. And so you using both of them in conjunction, not just one without the other. Because a lot of times, you know,
Love
we
it.
think we can pray a lot of things away, and we
Come
can.
on now.
But there is, you know, faith without works is also dead. So if you're not
Right.
doing anything to kind of change your situation or your circumstance, you know, it can be problematic. So it's good to reach out. It's good to have friends and family to talk to, but it's another level to therapy. Venting your problems, like when people post and vent on social media or whatever, that is not therapy. You know, therapy has a treatment plan, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to achieve that goal. While venting is just kind of venting, and it feels good to get it off your chest, but how long before you're kind of back in the same situation because your behaviors haven't changed? So it's a lot, you know, but that's a little bit of what I do.
That's good.
I have I have been for since 2015, I think it was. Started a group called Onward, and it's a free support group that I've been holding. It's kind of been on hold since COVID-19 came onto the scene. So we're trying to find a platform. You know, people are like, well, can't you do Zoom or can't you do this? Well, I mean, I could, but I really like the integrity of the group, the confidentiality of the group. I really want to keep that. And so I have to make sure that we're using a platform that's HIPAA compliant so that, you know, people's business isn't out on the airwaves. So I'm trying to work that out, but that's been something, and that's like a big part of my give back. I will never charge for that group because I know that it's something that's needed in the community. So
Wow. That's
Oh
awesome.
man. Oh man.
yeah.
You come with a wealth of knowledge. So it's like we're not going to be able to even touch on a whole lot that you bring to the table as far as the village is concerned. I'm going to move in that direction as soon as
Sure.
Lady Ashley is able to ask you whatever question is that she have for you.
Okay.
Right. So, did I mention that I'm excited to have you on this podcast?
You did. And did I mention I was so excited to be asked and to be a part of it?
Yay. So, you know, there's a small age difference between you and I. But if I can be transparent for a moment, I have watched you for quite some time. You know, growing up, I've watched you be a leader in the community. I've watched you take part in so many different things. I've seen your transparency. I've seen you pour your heart out. And, you know, I'm just so inspired by that. And I have so many questions for you, but I'll start with this one.
Okay.
You mentioned
And
that
thank you. That was so
have
sweet.
your nonprofit Epiphany Concepts. How did you turn your pain? What inspired you to turn your pain into a purpose?
Well, okay. So doing things in the community, and I think you can relate to this. Like when you have parents that do that, it's just a part of growing up. So it's not abnormal, you know, feeding people at the holidays or not, or doing things throughout the year that maybe nobody even knows about that your parents do, you know, and that kind of thing. It was a part, I think. I mean, even more, you know, they ask in therapy, like, is it more nature? Is it more nurture? I think it was both. You know, they fostered that in us. We always knew that we had to help other people, like, and not help other people like we look down at you and we help you. We help everybody. My dad grew up in a close-knit family, 6 boys. My grandmother had, and they always took, I know, and man, it was like a size 6 forever. That's what I don't understand. Why I didn't inherit that, you know. But they took care of each other, and even as they aged, and some of them passed on. Like my dad is deceased now, but he cared for my oldest uncle. He was with my other uncle when he died suddenly when they were in Detroit. It was just always like that. And it's the same way, like on my mom's side, like my first cousins are like my siblings, you know what I'm saying? And so it was just always look out, you and my brother to my sister, y'all take care of each other, y'all look out for each other. Like that was always that. So it extended, you know, beyond biological family. It was just like everybody was our cousin. And I mean, when you grow up in a small town like Cartersville, almost everybody up here is related in some kind of way, shape, or form. There's several families that are connected and, you know, whatever, but it was just always something, you know, so I don't think I consciously was doing that. I think it just happened
Right.
because it's in my nature, because that's what I was taught to do. So.
Right. And I know just the benefit that your nonprofit has. I know how valuable it is because we had a cousin whose son suddenly drowned, and I recommended you to her, and she didn't know what she was going to do. She didn't know how to process it. She didn't know. She just didn't know. And she came to me and she told me, thank you for telling her about you and your group.
Oh,
And she was
that's so
like, I
good.
don't know what I would have done had I not connected to her. So, you know, it takes a very strong person to create something out of their pain.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you're doing something major. And I personally remember your mom when I was a little girl, and she always smiled at me. She always told me how beautiful I was. And I grew up a foster child, and so oftentimes I felt like I was treated differently. She
Mm-hmm.
never treated me like I was any different from any other kids, and I always remember that. So I know that it's just
Oh,
in your blood. You know, it's just the way you were raised, and it's just in your DNA. So I'm
I love
blessed to
her. I
be
miss her.
to even know about what you have going on. So
Yeah, and I did actually, as you were talking, it kind of came to me how the group actually started. Okay, so my mother died in 2004. I didn't really, I was 24, so I was the matriarch of my family at 24 years old. So I felt a certain responsibility, like a mothering almost responsibility to my sister. I felt a duty, you know, kind of to my dad, my brother. I mean, just I was the oldest girl, so I mean, you
right,
know how that goes.
right.
So so I remember like the day after we buried my mom, it was on her funeral was on a Sunday. We went to, I had Maymester that started for college. And if anybody's ever taken a Maymester
It's
class,
hard.
that is 20 weeks
Yeah,
worth of work in 2 weeks.
yeah.
And
It's crazy.
oh my gosh, like so that Sunday, that Monday, I went right back to school. I signed up for like the full session. I was just trying to go, 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 go. And I didn't realize that was what I was doing. I just didn't know what to do. And
Right,
because people are always kind of used to looking at me as the cheerful one and
right,
like the one who will kind of lift people up, even as a kid, like I was that way. Always singing and performing and just being silly like my dad. And, you know, so I tried to stay in that role, but I never really dealt with my grief. So I ended up graduating from college. Weirdly enough, my mother died May 12th, 2004. I graduated from college May 12th, 2005.
wow.
Um, I worked for a period of time for the Department of Juvenile Justice. And then I asked my dad if it was okay for me to leave my job because it was a full-time program to pursue my master's uh, in social work. And so he said I could. So I did. That was from '06 to '08. 2008, I bought a house. We had our first Thanksgiving at my house, and I was so excited. We had been out that day because Dexter and Katasha Morris had that feed the, you know, for Thanksgiving.
Right.
So then we had done that, and then we went back to my house. So we ate, did our thing, and then everybody kind of went their own way, and I was really tired. And just all of a sudden, like I started crying, like, and it was like guttural, like ugly, like snot, like lip curled up, like, and I was like, and I was so confused because I was like, I've had a really good day. Like, what's really going on? And I think I cried for like out. Like my brother tried to get me to come. He was eating at Trina Callahan's house, and he tried to get me to come, and I was like, no, because I was so just overcome with emotion. And by the time I finished crying, like my eyes were so swollen shut, and like air was moving through my vocal cords, but it sounded like a whisper. It wasn't even like a cry. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I was like, all of that, that was 4 years worth of tears, worth of just all
Mm.
kind of stuff. During that time, I had started having panic attacks, dealing with anxiety. I mean, almost debilitating anxiety. Wouldn't drive at night on the expressway. I mean, it was bad. And but after I had that moment, I said, I will never, um, I'll never have another Thanksgiving like this ever again.
Yeah.
And so after that, I just started being more intentional, and I started reading more about what can I do to stop this from happening, and, you know, all these kinds of things. And still, that was in 2008, and I never had another, you know, sad holiday like that again. But that's when it kind of clicked for me that there's got to be something, and I can't be the only person feeling like this. And as
Right.
alone as I felt, and as many people as I know, like, I know somebody else is dealing with this. So I said all of that to say that was kind of like the impetus, even though it didn't come until, even though it didn't come until, you know, years later, that's when the seed was kind of birthed. And I was like, and I hadn't even begun working in hospice yet either. So that was that. And then I started working in hospice in 2009. So.
Wow.
You
So
know,
you had to go through.
You covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Just in.
Mm-hmm.
And you answered a couple of my questions that I'm just going to mark off.
Okay.
Because it was all in the mix of what you were stating. I've read that story. If I'm not mistaken, you've got some type of, it's a piece that you wrote, I think on IG, or it's a beautiful piece where you mentioned this information. And the thing about it, I was intrigued by it simply because I know that pain is purpose. And the thing about it is, we don't choose that route. We don't choose the road. You know what I'm saying? But we're not here. We're not here for naught. We're here on purpose. So I believe that when we move in a place, it's intentional. When God has anointed you to be a voice to the silent cry, whether it's grief, whether it's abuse, whatever the case may be. As one person, you can't win everybody. I believe that we are assigned to a people. Okay.
Right.
So I won't ask you what inspired you, because now I know based off of what you just shared. So my question is going to be to you. What is it? What is it that you believe as far as the village is concerned? What do you believe is your place where the village is concerned when it comes to reaching, you know, different people? What is your role? What is your role to reach the village?
I think as an educator, I think, you know, as a healer, you know, I consider my role as a therapist. I consider myself as that. Even when I sing, I feel like there is something about me, because I'm an extension of God, you know, in the earth realm that's tangible for people. Everybody's faith walk is not such that they can just deal with Abba, with God the Father, and just look at him like that. So all of us, I think Kirk Franklin wrote a song, it was early in his career, about if people can't see my Jesus, then they have to see me. You know, I'm going to be the Jesus that they see. So, you know, I think my role is, like, I'm not pretentious. I can't do fake. I never, like, I don't hide my emotions well, like even on my face. Like I just cannot do that. And I cannot in good conscience tell people, you know, go to therapy if I'm a therapist, but I'm not willing to go myself, because I am a therapist and I have a therapist, you know. And I think my role is to normalize that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to seek help outside of your family. It's okay, you know, to do that. And as a village, I feel like I can't, you know, some people have bad things to say about Cartersville. Sometimes they have felt judged, or they have felt this, or they have felt that. And I guess at some point, maybe, but overall, my experience has been positive. I'm talking about, like, even in my education, like my mother, was my first teacher, you know, Zion Community Daycare at Mount Zion. Then I go to kindergarten at Cass Primary. Phyllis Robinson is my kindergarten teacher, who is also my cousin. First grade, I go to Mission Road, Ruby Morgan. Second grade, Ruth Jones. Third grade, Rosanna Shaw. Fourth grade, Theresa Oglesby. Fifth grade, Leslie Williams, and Mr. Ralph Lowe was my principal.
Wow. So
village, that has, like I told you how I grew up on both sides. So I've always, like, every graduation that I have ever had up to my master's degree, Bibby Morgan and Ruby Morgan have been at my graduations, like physically there.
I
Not
love
even,
them.
and brought cards. Thank y'all. You know what I'm saying? And then even when my daughter, you know, was in the debutante ball for the AKAs, Miss Ruby took her under her wing for that. So I mean, like the bottom gym was, you know, a part of my village. You know, Dutch Strickland, like learning how, oh, you can have like a halfway. I mean, it's always been so much. You, Miss Deborah, you know, Coach Deb, singing, like Billy, I mean, it's everywhere. And I'm like nothing without that experience. And so those people that feel like they're not a part, you know, it's my job as a social worker who, like in our code of ethics, we talk about equity and making sure like everything is fair for everybody. Like those scragglers and those that they feel like they're misfits and they don't fit in. It's my role to pull them in and say, yeah, I do have a master's and a license, but I hurt just like you hurt, and I'm human just like you're human.
Right.
And I think, and in the Black community, like, I think I get the buy-in on that group, Ashley, like what you were talking about. I get the buy-in on that group because I've been there and I'm not afraid to share my experience. And I have cried in my own group before. Like, I don't come up there like I'm some kind of expert. You know, I am an expert by way of experience and by way of my credentials, but it's my experience that really gets people to buy in, you know, and you can be a good grief therapist and not have, you know, that experience. I mean, God can anoint you to do anything, but I know that that's why. And I'm not ever going to be ashamed or afraid to tell my story. If my, you know, like even Ashley was talking about my mom, it's fall. I always think about my mom. It's almost fall. I always think about my mom. I could feel like a little lump. Like if I would have had to cry, I just would have had to come off to the side or just been right here or just swallow a few times. That's what I got to do. Yeah. Because if I ever lose that, I feel like, you know, like in hospice, I've seen thousands of people die. And like, death is never like, oh, this is another death. I always have that lump. I always feel toward that family, you know, not that I'm them, but because I know that my pain connects, that's empathy. My pain connects, you know, with their pain.
That's right.
And so,
that's right.
You know, village is everything, Coach Deb. I mean, I don't see, that's why when people aren't a part of the village, that's why they struggle. And so,
exactly, girl.
Yeah. So I just posted something on my Instagram. It's the most recent post, and we see this a lot in our society. It says ultra independent is a trauma response. So when you find people that just say, I'm gonna do it myself, I don't need nobody, I don't see it. We human beings, scientifically, this ain't even churchy. Scientifically, we are designed to connect to each other.
Exactly.
Black people especially, we are communal. That's why choir, and that's why all of these things to come together, you know, and all of the tenets in Kwanzaa and all of those kind of things are about community and coming together. And that's why, and if we ever do that, that's why the enemy fights us so hard in this area. Like, why can't 10 different people have a podcast? They can. But if somebody does it first, oh, well, she thinks and, you know, all of that crabby junk that happens. Like, it's enough. It is enough love. It's enough. Come on now. It's enough money to go around really for everybody. So if you have an idea for selling shirts or selling plates or selling whatever, like you said, I cannot counsel everybody in this world. Come on now. So Margaret's gotta have a practice. I've gotta have a practice. Kawana Washington's gotta have a practice. Right. You know, Lyrica's gotta have a practice. Dr. Melissa Green has to have a practice. Like, it has to be like that because it's just certain people, singers, older girls, you know, single parents, they'll relate to me and they'll want to come to me, or they might see my picture on Psychology Today and like my lipstick. I mean, it can be anything, but it's something like everybody has their lane, everybody has their niche, everybody has their population that they're assigned to. And so, you know, that's what we got to do. Like, we got to get out of the mindset. We got to be community and not competitors.
Right.
Ooh. I'm gonna write that
Right.
down.
Look, you better write that down, sis.
You need to make a shirt out of that.
Okay.
Look, that's good. I do that too.
I'm like,
That was
because
awesome.
because that's our problem. That is one of our many issues. Like every race like can come together, and it goes back so far. Cain and Abel, house inward, field inward. You know, the house slave, the field slave, like all of those divisions, and that stuff impacts us even now. The light-skinned child, the dark-skinned child, this child, that child, different daddies. I didn't like your daddy, so I
Girl,
keep
you better stop.
we keep traumatizing our own. We traumatize our own, and it's just it's not right. And we're damaging ourselves, and we are losing when God made us to be, you know, above and not beneath. Above only, it says, and not beneath. Like we gotta it's a lot of work to do, and I can't do it by myself, you know. And I mean, it's just so much. I get turned up about this kind of stuff. Like I'm
glad. It's beautiful.
I do.
Yeah, I'm that way too. You know, there's one thing that is so awesome about you to me is like you've been a leader for as long as I can remember. And I'm a leader in the community as well. I'm a pastor's wife, and then I do other things as well. But I also understand the pressure and the weight that is on the leader. I understand the expectations that are placed on the leader. And one thing that I really honor about you is your transparency. And I think that's one major thing that we have in common, because I always tell people that God has given me the gift of transparency. And that's a gift, because a lot of people would much prefer hide what they've had to go through instead of speak on those things so that they can inspire others. And
not
so
knowing
that's one thing
that's going to set them
love.
free.
Right.
Like it's going to set you free. The more you talk about it, it's going to heal, and then you're going to heal other people.
Right.
Reveal and heal.
And it's so true that, you know, what we go through, I know it sounds so cliche, but it's so true that what we have to go through is to make us better, but it's also to help pull other people through. And like, I can remember feeling like I was suffocating with Kyrie pastoring, and, you know, some people want to be pastors' wives, and I'll just say that was not my original choice. And it's just a lot, but being able to witness your transparency and how you're not afraid to speak about things that you've had to deal with, that alone gave me power, and it gave me the confidence to be able to speak out on things that I've had to deal with. I've reached out to you on other occasions when I was dealing with something within my family, and you always gave me the direction that I needed. And like that right there, that's being a part of the village, and that's being the person that should be a part of a village. So I definitely give you mad respect for just your transparency, because people see Aaron Jones, they see that you're talented, they see that you're a leader, they see all of these amazing things about you. But a lot of people, and I notice that sometimes it's hard for people to see the struggle in leaders. They want us to be perfect. They want us to appear that we have it all together. But you broke the mold when you allow people to see the transparency that you possess. So I just want to let you know that inspires me, and that reminds me in my weak moments that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. And it's people like you who are part of the village who I can come to, you know, when I need help or when I need some type of direction. That's what it means to be a part of the village. So kudos to you.
Chills. Thank you.
You got a question?
I appreciate that.
She's juicing you up. You got a question? You got a question?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I do have a question. I do have a question. See, you know what, Erin? I'm talking to Erin right now. See, she does this. You go back on all the podcasts and see, she calls me out like this. So Look, I get caught up and I have to try to regain my composure, and
And you done turn a whole, but Erin, you done turn a whole different shade. So it's like.
So let me cut that off and let me go to my question.
Where are you, Erin? Where are you?
My apologies. See, you always do me like that. You see how you do? You see, look at my nose. My nose is shining brighter than it should be right about now.
Listen.
I said,
Look,
Lord, what happened? I'm
Look,
back.
Aaron, we kicking you out
honey,
Zoom.
you done turned a different shade. She all mushy. I said, okay, I'm just gonna move over to the side. And just
But no, but you know what? Words of affirmation is my top love language, and I appreciate that. I mean, and I really do, because like sometimes you don't think you're really doing anything, and people don't think you think that. People think you be up here like trying to be somebody, and I'm thinking, except for God's grace, like I'm nothing. Like I am absolutely nothing. I am, God allowed me to, matriculate through school and, do all of that, all while, being a mom and raising this girl, because every loss that I've had, Madison has had too. And people don't think about that. That's why I will always go hard for her, because she is always just, done what she was supposed to do. She's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And like, we're very open, even like I apologize to her. If I do something wrong, if I accuse her of something, or if I, on an anxious day, yell at her for something and then it wasn't her fault, then I go back and I say, I'm sorry, and I try to do things that maybe, I felt like my parents could have done better.
Yeah.
Just to make it better. And I hope she does, the same with her children.
Yeah.
When she has them too. But
yeah.
Yeah,
and I
what's the
think that's
question?
important. Look, I think that's important too, because I didn't, growing up, I didn't get a lot of apologies. In the Black community, is if they're wrong, they right. Or you're gonna do it because I said it, or you don't need to know why.
Right.
But it's so crazy, because I find myself like with my kids, who are my biggest critics. I find myself, like, for instance, Bella I made her miss a birthday party, and she's 4, and like she was real mad at me, and I had to say, Bella, I'm sorry I was running my mouth. Will you please forgive me? She wasn't ready to forgive me right then, but by the end of the conversation, but my question to you is, what does your village look like growing up? I know you mentioned Mr. Morgan, and I know you mentioned Miss Ruby. How did having that village affect your outcome? Because a lot of people's village has failed them. But we're blessed if we've had a village that has helped build us. So what was it about your village that helped make you into who you are today, and how did that affect your outcome?
I would say, okay, so my village wasn't a perfect village, and I think we got to get out of the mindset that good kids or good situations or good outcomes have to come from perfect situations.
Right.
Jesus didn't come out no perfect situation. Like, his whole existence, how he came on the scene, was causing trouble from the start. You know what I'm saying? So we have to be, mindful of that. And so my village, I just think about, gosh, I mean, I consider like Sister Tina Williams, Japeth and Justin's mom, singers, like a lot of singers, the people at Victory Life across the street from House to Liberty. I mean, like, I think of all of that stuff, and like, I get very, and I think it makes me tearful when I think about like my mom and stuff, because all of that brings all of that back. So all of the women the people on the praise teams, and just following my mom around, there were so many people, and I always, and I think that's what helps me a lot with my clients too. Like, I don't come in, like I said earlier, I don't come in like I'm an expert. People are the expert on their lives. Therapists are there to kind of guide them, address faulty thinking patterns, things that because like, you can think a thing and think that it's right, and then when you can think it in your mind, and then you say it out your mouth, and you're like, that doesn't even make sense. But it's something that has guided you or governed you your whole life, and until you have that experience with that therapist, you don't know that. And so, I mean, like, Margaret, talking about us being colleagues now, when we were classmates at Zion Community Daycare on the Hill, and I can remember her calling my mama, and I used to get so mad at Margaret, like, my mama, or whatever. but that was my first lesson in community and learning that my mom is a community mom. She everybody's like in some kind of way, you know, she mothered people in so many different ways. So, you know, I mean, Mary Canty, you know, I mean, I'm in my mind, like I'm driving up Fight Street, then I'm going up Wofford Street.
Right.
Then, I mean, my cousin, like when I was in high school, I spent a lot of time with Rashida and Tiff, my cousins Rashida and Tiffany, all of the people, just the whole hill in general. Louise, you know, Louise Beasley, who is related to me also. And then I forgot, I left this out. The librarian at my elementary school was my grandmother's sister, Ann Robinson. You know, so and what did that bring out of me? It created accountability, because what I was being told at home was what I was being told at school. And if I got out of line, which, you know, I didn't do much, I was pretty chill, but I knew that they would tell my parents, and I knew it was gonna be some consequences, you know, to my actions. So you know, my PE teacher, Miss Martin, who, I mean, I'm Facebook friends with some of my elementary school teachers that are they still give the little girl, Erin, the inner child, Erin, like this encouragement. I'm so proud of you. Look at what you're doing. And, you know, all these kind of things and it takes me back to being at Mission Road Elementary and, you know, Miss Martin, Heath now, but Miss Martin saying, you know, oh, you ran so fast, or oh, you did so good, you know, in PE or whatever. So, you know, Miss Phillips and Miss McGowan in music class, and Miss Gray, my middle school course teacher, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Stanley. Like, I mean, it's so much. And I told the Lord, I was praying one day and I just started to thank him, because he's always, no matter what job I had when I was in graduate school, whatever, like how I got into graduate school, I didn't even apply initially, because I was in the very first MSW class at Kennesaw State. One of my professors, Dr. Cynthia Ratchford, an African-American professor at Kennesaw State, called me at my job and was like, Miss Jones. And I knew her voice immediately. And she reminded me of my mom, because she wore red lipstick all the time and had a little short haircut. And she said, I didn't see your name, you know, in the pool of applicants for the MSW program, darling. And I was like, well, I didn't apply. I mean, you know, I'm working and, you know, I'm working. So she was like, you know, in no uncertain terms, because she didn't always use, you know, she used some different language than my mom, sometimes not a heavenly language. She was like, you better get your beat in you know, go take the GRE, get in this program and get your credentials. And I was like, okay. And I'm so glad that I did. So, I mean, she reached out to me. She didn't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just always, God has favored me in that way, that I've always been, even after my mom was gone, I had lots of mothers. It wasn't the same, and it wasn't my mother, but, you know, they gave me what I needed, or they reiterated something that my mom had told me along the way, or my dad, you know, had told me along the way to push me, you know, because that's when I started dealing with anxiety in graduate school. And it was so funny, because we were talking about so many things. Like, okay, they say that everybody, y'all have probably heard, they say, oh, well, therapists, you know, they get into it because they crazy. And I said, I'd like to challenge that. I would like to say we've all been affected by something in one way or another that has pushed us to the point to where we want to, it's for us, like in a way, you know, on a very, very deep level, it's the curative part for us. You know, but we want to share that gift, and we want to share that healing light with everybody. So, you know, during that period of time, I was going through it. I remember having my first anxiety attack. I was on my way home from school, and it was at night. And I was on 75 heading north, coming home. And I called my brother and I said, Dexter, I think I'm dying. I was like, and please stay on the phone with me, because in case I die, I want you to know, like, where I am. Like, I was afraid. I mean, like, if I think back to that and like channel that, you know what I'm saying? Like, just think back to that moment. It was so scary. I mean, I called Pastor Jean, and I was like, well, hurry up. I was like, somebody just stay on the phone with me. And that 15 minutes from Kennesaw, I swear, felt like days, years, because I was so anxious and just, it was awful. And then that set off just a lot. I mean, it was a lot going through. So to push through grad school with all of that stress, and getting into the curative part. And when I was so young, when I went back, I was like, well, I'm just doing this because I want to help people, not the deepest insight to myself and what I needed, from it. So even though I do end up helping people, it's so mutually beneficial because I get, so much from it too. So that's how, the village, man, my village has been and continues to be amazing. I got my grad school professors, my friends on Facebook. I'm doing a presentation for Florida State University soon because she teaches there. And I mean, God is just good. That's just it. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah, that's a blessing. That's awesome.
You paid homage tonight, this morning, to so many unknown faces and unknown names, and I think that is just absolutely very respectful of you. Your village has been a huge amount of people. They possibly didn't even consider themselves major in your life, just doing what they aspire to do, or desire to do, not making a big deal out of it because they were heartfelt, to do it. So you also expose your vulnerability. It's like you really want people to understand and know that you're just a broken human being, and you desire to be the change that you want to see.
I do not like people feeling alone. Do you know how alone you feel? Like I can only imagine how alone you felt when you went through what you went through. I worked in adoption, but most of my kids were teenagers and they were long-term foster care kids. I know they feel alone. That is an illusion that the enemy creates so he can wreak havoc and we can deal with all this dysfunction and deal with all this trauma and all this kind of stuff. But that I hate feeling alone. That's why I was like, I got to do a group. I got to do something where people can connect. And even though in the group, people have different losses. It might be a spouse. It might be a child. It might be their mother. It could have been 25 years ago. It could have been 2 months ago. There are so many commonalities. And just when you hear somebody say, girl, me too, for real. Like,
yes,
I thought I was the only one. And if we would stop being so guarded and stop being so weird and like not talking to each other, and I shouldn't say weird, that sounded very judgmental. If we would stop being
but it's the truth though.
Informed,
it's the truth though.
And people are informed by their trauma because some people have been betrayed. I understand that. Like I really do. But we have got to push past that fear and be, like you said, vulnerable enough. Shout out to Brene Brown, who is a shame researcher who talks about vulnerability. We have got to get to a place to where we are open about what it is that we deal with, so that if somebody else has been through that, if you don't ever tell anybody, like, why would you hold the secret to somebody else being successful? And I mean, there's a lot of issues within that. And we talked about that earlier, in our community, especially. But we have got to start being more open and telling the truth. Many are won by the word of our testimony and by the blood of the Lamb. But if we do not testify, and it's more than giving honor to God who's the head of my life. When we have opportunity at lunch, when we have opportunity at church, when we have opportunity, at the women's conference or whatever, just even in our day-to-day, walking with our friend, hiking Pine Mountain, and we see somebody struggling, like to get off of our pride and off of our ego and say,
come on now,
I struggle just like you struggle.
Yeah.
Like I have to have help too. And the thing about it is, a lot of mental health professionals don't get help. But if an oncologist can get cancer, then a therapist can probably be depressed. Like, after all, you do listen to people's problems all day. After all, you do absorb that like all the time. So, I mean, it's just like, we have got to we really have to deal with our trauma. That way, we don't separate from each other, because, I mean, it's been detrimental to our culture so far, if nobody can see that,
Right. And you
I
know,
want to mentor. You know what I'm saying? Like I want, like it means a lot to me that you said what you said, because I would never want you, like, you know, every single mother with one child, when you just had Nakiria, like I was like, dang, that was me. When I told Shay Alexander, who is also a licensed clinical social worker, when I see her in Emory, that reminds me of me and Madison. You know what I'm saying? My heart just it just goes out, because I remember those times. I remember being young. I remember trying to go to school, trying to make a life, and all of those kinds of things. And I think that would be horrible of me to have keys to help you and just not help you. Why? Like, I don't
right,
understand that.
right,
I
right.
don't.
And you know, I didn't, you know, there was a period in my life where I don't feel like I had a very strong village. You know, I can remember when I was in foster care, and for about 7 years from age 4 to 11. And I mean, my foster parents, they did the best that they could. But there
Mm-hmm.
were many nights that I cried myself to sleep. There were many
Mm-hmm.
like nights that I felt so alone. And then I would go to school and I would, you know, not get in trouble, but just not be the best student. And I
Mm-hmm.
never had a teacher to say, hey, I noticed that you're off. There's something going on. Would you like to talk about it? And they wouldn't know that, because they never asked. They wouldn't know that I seen my mom out in public and I just wanted to hug her and I was ripped out of her arms. And they wouldn't know the trauma that I had to endure, you
Right.
know, over the weekend. And maybe that's why my behavior was not the best. But I
Right.
do remember I remember two people in my whole school career. Miss Kellogg, Linda Kellogg,
Mm-hmm.
who was the attendance officer at Cartersville High School. I think she still is. And Mr. Jabez Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
He was a part of my village. Those were the only two people in my whole school career who showed me that there was some type of value in me that they were able to recognize. And you know, but I just don't feel like another child should have to grow up without a strong village. And
Right.
so I really put my hands together for anybody who has vowed to be a part of the change, who has vowed to be a part of the village that is needed in our community. Because unfortunately, right now, there are a lot of children um, who don't have that village that they need. And so us
Mm-hmm.
as believers, us as kingdom builders, us as just positive people, we have an obligation to fulfill those duties, to fulfill those
Absolutely.
assignments. And, you know, really, we go through what we've had to go through in order to pull other people through. So
Sure.
our trauma and our rejection and the things that we've had to deal with, it's not just for us. It's to help the people who are connected to us and the people who are around
Absolutely.
us. So, you know, that's major. Like, and I just keep going back to your transparency. Like, I'll never forget recently, probably about 4 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
I too had an anxiety attack. And
Mm.
we ordered food from City Wings. Kyrie was at home with the kids, and there was some stuff going on with Nike and Niall, my two oldest. I think they had got into a major argument that day, and I'm just not used to that. So I'm picking up the food from City Wings. I'm sitting in the car, and then I look up and I see Kyrie. I see my husband. And I'm like, what are you doing here? And he was like, oh, I had to come get something to drink. And so out of nowhere, I had a panic attack. And I told him, I said, I feel like I'm losing my mind. And I mean, tears, and I couldn't catch my
Mm-hmm.
breath, and it was just so
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming. And
Mm-hmm.
his patience and his love walked me through that. And it only lasted about 4 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime. And he was just telling me, baby, you're just overwhelmed, you're just stressed, you know, breathe, it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
okay. But guess what? People look at me as a leader. There's so many people who reach out to me to encourage them. But at
Mm-hmm.
what point do the encourager have someone to encourage them? And I think because we
Mm.
are leaders, we walk around, we carry a lot of weight, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that we're carrying those bags or those weights, and then it hits us all at one time. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think for people to see that even leaders, even people in high positions, which I really don't care about positions, but even people who have obligations, like they have the same issues that the next door neighbor has.
Right.
Like
And
in today's time, people need to know that I'm not the only one that's going through.
right. I think that is a great point. I'm so glad that you had Kyrie to, to be there for you during that, because those things are scary. They are very, very scary, and it's amazing what the human mind can make your body do. Like stress can make your body do. Um, what I want to employ. It's funny that you said, the leaders and all these people carry all this weight, and the reason that we have anxiety and that we get overwhelmed is because we start to shoulder things that are meant for God to shoulder. And we internalize like a lot of those things. So, we're worried, he addresses the mind so many times in scripture. He addresses anxiety. Philippians 4:6-8. That's what I used to quote all the time. Be anxious for nothing, but with prayer and
Yes.
supplication, make your request unto God, and the God of peace will guard your heart and mind. And I used to keep my Bible when I was going through it bad. I kept my Bible under my pillow. I would quote that. I would say it out loud. I would say it in my mind if I felt out of breath or whatever the case. But as leaders, we also have to take some level of responsibility for our own health, for our own well-being, for self-care. Most of us that help, and I can only speak for myself, but I get joy out of helping. It's a little bit of a high, a little bit of a rush. But we have to also remember we are not God, and we are not omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. We don't have all of that. We are an extension of him, but we don't hold all of those things. And I mean, we've got to have safe spaces where we can talk to people, whether it's your therapist, whether, it's your pastor, whether whomever it may be, that is your safe person. You have to, take care of ourselves physically. I'm back on the wagon of working out again and like trying to get everything together again, because all of those things play a part with our mental health. We talk about like mental health, but it's all really connected holistically to everything, because what happens in your mind, you do have heart palpitations when you have an anxiety attack. You do start to hyperventilate. You do start having, your brain starts telling your body, danger, 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 even though it's not a real threat. It's telling your body that. So it's shooting cortisol into your bloodstream, which causes all kind of issues in your body. It causes you to gain weight. If you gain weight, like particularly in your belly, like that's what that comes from. Like that's what that comes from. So, at some point we have to stop being, we have to stop being so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good, and stop allowing people to put us in a God position. Keep yourself in a humble place and know that you're not God. And when you know your limitations, you know that there's only a certain point that you can go to, and God's going to have to do the rest. Even with my clients, even if they're not believers, me as a therapist, because I don't claim I am a Christian that is a therapist, but I'm not trained as a Christian therapist. I'm a general practitioner, you know what I'm saying? But as a believer, I have to go in my own private time, self-care time, to say, Lord, these issues that are impacting these people are impacting me, and I need your help. If I'm supposed to be a guide for them, if I'm supposed to give direction, if I'm supposed to do whatever, like, I need you to help me. And that I'm actually gonna start a vlog, and it's actually called Help the Helper. And so just because like around with these physicians or whatever, and it is a lot of pressure to perform a certain type of way. That's why Overseer Jeanette Harris from the Daresville Body of Christ, I remember one time she was at a revival, and she said, nobody's ever going to tell anything on me. Nobody can ever blackmail me, because I'm going to tell it myself. So I'm going to tell you about my struggles. I'm going to tell you about all of these things, so that that I struggle just like you do. And except for God's grace, and some good therapy and some prayer and going to bed at night. And, simple thing, putting myself on a schedule, not being allowed to be pulled into other people's crises all the time. If it's that serious, call 911. Like, even the doctor tells you, if this is a medical emergency, if this is a mental health emergency, then call 911. You know what I'm saying? Because now it's out of my scope of practice, and I can't help you. And so knowing your limitations and on what you can do so that, you know, you can be an effective helper and then still have something to give to your husband and your children and whoever those people are in your life. You know, we women wear, people, I shouldn't even just say women, people wear many hats. And we've got to learn how, it's not that we can't do it. He didn't give us all these skills and all these talents and stuff for no reason. So like, we've got to be good stewards over our bodies, over everything, in order to continue to be effective and not burn out. My mom, prime example why I'm so serious about my self-care. My mom had breast cancer. Now it was aggressive. It was the triple negative. And I don't know if we had discovered it any earlier, how much long, I don't know those things. I used to try to figure that was part of my anxiety. Like, what if I had, that's a part of grief called bargaining. Well, if we had done this, and if she had just blah, blah, blah. So I spent a lot of time after she was dead, you know, sorry, did I lose y'all? Oh, being angry, with her. And she did not, she gave and gave and gave and gave so much, she couldn't even tell what was going on in her own body. And it was just misguided, because self-care, that's only a buzzword that started to come in the last few years, that we've heard people really talking about it and triggered, and, you know, all of these and that brings up another point while I'm saying this. I don't care how many, and it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Ashley, about process. I don't care how many memes you read. I don't care how many episodes of Red Table Talk. I don't care how much jargon you think you can throw around like a therapist or like you've been in treatment. Until you go and do that work yourself, you are not going to be changed. Healing is such a messy process. Like therapy, I think I made a meme once. It said, therapy is one of the most beautifully exhausting experiences I've ever had. There were some sessions that I would leave out of there feeling worse than when I came. And if you think about physical healing, like if you have a knee replacement surgery, or you tear your ACL or hip replacement or whatever, there is a recovery time that when you're doing like all these kinds of things, and it's like you're doing all of these things, but it hurts worse. Physical therapy hurts. When they start to bend your knee back, so think about that stuff from foster care. Things you might not even, until you get into therapy because you suppressed it, you might not even know it's still even there. So then all of that stuff starts to come up, and all of this other stuff starts to come up, which leads to, oh, when I was in this relationship, that's why I did that. Oh, when I went over here, this is why I did that, and so on and so forth. And it's such a journey, and it is an experience. And I tell people all the time, it is not for the faint of heart, but it is an experience that will break you down to build you back up. And when it's on a better foundation, like I am a different woman, because I was in treatment for like 2 years straight. When I first started going to therapy, my anxiety was so bad. LaWanda Shell had to drive me. Ed and Benicia had to drive me because I was so jittery. If a truck came up beside me, I'd been done run off the road because I was so anxious. And I was going weekly. And if you're going weekly, that I was never suicidal. I never wanted to hurt myself or anything like that. But typically, if you're going to a therapist weekly, that is considered intensive treatment. And I did that probably for 4 to 6 months. And at this time, my dad was sick. I started in January 2014. 2014 tried to kill me. January 2014, I started therapy. My dad died May 11th, 2014. My house foreclosed because I was taking FMLA, and you don't get paid for that. They hold your job, but you don't get paid. I lost my home that I bought June. I was laid off in October of that same year. So that's trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. And I'm still here to tell the story. And that's why I'm so passionate about the fact of how therapy really can change your life. And getting with the right therapist, we gotta do some healing. That's just
so
all
can we touch on that? Because okay, so you have helped me out with this. You and Brooke Flowers.
Oh, she wrote my bio, by the way. Shout out to Brooke.
Shout out to you, Brooke Flowers. But when I tell you that there was a moment where I've never been suicidal either, but you know, a lot of times when we're dealing with stuff with people who are connected to us, who we're close with, you know, we carry that weight too. And there was a time where I did not know where I could go. And you and Brooke, y'all were my strength. Y'all were my backbone, and y'all didn't even know it. Just giving me simple information.
I'm blown. Like I'm gonna be thinking about this conversation like, what? Like,
girl, I'm telling you, and the confirmation was I had prayed and I said, God, you got to help me figure this out for this person. And my confirmation was, you told me one thing, and Brooke Flowers told me the exact same thing. You told me the same exact recommendation.
oh my
But for
gosh.
the people who don't have, let me rewind. Some people don't know where to start, how to begin to find a therapist, because you can Google, and like me, I would like an African American therapist. Not that I have anything against anybody else, but I just feel like that they can relate to me better.
Sure.
But for the person who have no clue on how to begin their search for a therapist, what kind of direction can you give them?
Okay,
Before you answer
so
that question,
yes.
before you answer that question,
Uh-huh.
we're down to a bare minimum of
Okay.
minutes.
My
I
phone's about to
recommend
die
you and
too.
Ashley.
She gonna get kicked out.
I
She will put
recommend you
us
and
out.
Ashley connect after this is over. There
Dinner.
are
We gotta go to
questions.
dinner or something. Yeah.
There are questions I didn't get a chance to ask
Sorry.
Okay.
because it was just so much rich information. So for the sake of time, I really have to move forward. If you
Okay.
can answer her question summarize like for
Sure.
a minute, because
Okay.
I actually need to cover some ground before we're
Okay.
done this
Okay.
morning. So if you
Cool
could
beans.
go
And
ahead and
and I
answer her
can
question.
absolutely, yeah, I can absolutely do that very quickly. Um, it's as simple really as psychologytoday.com is a great resource. There is another website called openpathcollective.org. And that is really affordable. They give you like a set rate. And like it's like kind of like a subscription. It's like a Netflix, you know what I'm saying? But it's therapy, you know what I'm saying? So it's a set price for that. There's a search engine called Therapy for Black Girls. So Black African American females who are looking for a therapist. There's also BetterHelp, which I will be listed on their roster very soon. And you can find, I mean, therapists from all over the nation with all different types of specialties, you know, that relate to your issue. So those are some, you know, some links. Definitely start though with psychologytoday.com.
That's awesome.
Okay, so this is what I need. I need for you
Okay.
to answer this question. And then, of course, I'm going to have Lady Ashley to share some tips or something with anyone that's listening before we move out. Now,
Okay.
I need for you to share with the people that are listening,
Oh.
how important is it for the community, the village, to go to therapy, to deal with suppressed emotions, understanding that process is something you have to trust when it comes to healing. But at
Right.
the same time, there are a lot of people that have suppressed emotions for many different reasons.
Sure.
So what is your take on the community going to therapy? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and if they don't have a means of going to therapy, the importance of reaching into the village to speak with counselors and pastors and teachers and someone that they trust.
So I want to put out, I guess, like kind of like a charge to those people in leadership to be be a safe space for these people.
That's
We
good.
know who these people are that are struggling, and even if it's somebody who, you know, with the life that looks like they don't need anything, always being open to understand that everybody has a story and
Yes.
being a safe place. If you know you're not a safe place, refer them to somebody who is. If you know you talk too
Right.
much, if you know you're going to tell their business and further wound them, then just send them on to somebody else. Like that is a great responsibility, you know, of the village. Don't make them outcasts from the village. Bring them into the village so that they can get healing. And if you're not a person, again, that can do that without judgment, refer them to somebody else. Like that's our answer to everything in therapy. If that's not your niche, if that's not your, if that's out of your scope, refer out. Send them to somebody that you know that can deal with that issue. If you've got somebody, you know, that's struggling with leaving an abusive situation, then I know I'm gonna send them to Coach Deb. Then, you know, if there's a young adult that's transitioning into independent living after being in foster care, I know I'm gonna send them to Ashley. So on the one hand, we've got to communicate with one another. Stop having like 12 different events on the same day, and maybe have one event together.
Yes.
You know, and actually having conversations, because with conversation comes relationship, with relationship comes familiarity and trust, and then you know what everybody has to offer. Like, people know me. I mean, and I'm sure they know now that I'm a therapist or whatever. Oh, well, I just thought you worked for DFAC. People still think I work at DFAC, which I did in 2008. But I don't work there anymore. And I still have, you know, some level of knowledge and friends that still work there, and I can potentially get answers. But I'm just saying, like, the more that we converse with each other and stay in touch with each other, we'll know what everybody can do. And if we don't, then we know Trey Benham is at the Goodwill. You know, he'll know how to, you know, get into this. You know, Monique Strickland works at the Labor Department. Like, we need to know that. Like, we need to have like a directory. And I think that's actually being worked on.
Yeah,
like a directory. Yeah, like of things, services, so that we know like what people can do, you know?
Right.
Whew. Amen. We need to work on that.
Aaron, like me,
Yeah,
we need to work on that.
God,
So, Ashley, I need for you to share with the people. You mentioned, and I'm heartbroken about it, you mentioned the fact that you don't recall having a village, you know, going through what you were going through. I know that, you know, unbeknownst to you, they were there, you know, because people are out, you know, people that love and care about you. Sometimes they don't always have the right word to say, or, you know, they don't always show up when they should. But a village is people, not person, but people. And they're there. So I need for you to speak to someone that felt like you. Where's my village? Where is my village? So you now can be that voice. Speak to whoever is feeling like you felt. Where's my village? What do you recommend?
Right. So, you know, I first want to encourage whoever is feeling this way to, number one, take off your mask. Because a lot of times we wear a smile for a mask. A lot of times we wear a laughter for a mask. And then that village is unable to recognize that we're hurting, or recognize that we're going through something. And so I want to encourage that person who feels like they're alone, who feels like they don't have a village. I want to encourage you to take a deep breath. I want to encourage you to take off your mask so that your true, authentic self can be revealed. And also, I want you to pray for God's direction, because a lot of times God will show us who we can reach. He shows me who I can reach out to, who I can connect myself to be able to pour into me in those areas. Now, I went through this as a kid, so I was 4 to age 11. And so I wasn't able to really comprehend how to connect to a village. But I just want to encourage you to look at the leaders inside of your community, and then take a bold step. Take a bold step to reach out to whoever it is that you feel like God is connecting you to. And a lot of times people think that leaders are unattainable, but that's just not the truth. Find you someone who you can be yourself with, who you can connect with, and who can see your value, and then begin to start your healing process. So, you know, I mean, it's not a lot that I can say concerning, you know, how to find that village. I just believe that God will bring that village to you. You know what I'm saying? So, and I know that there's a lot of people there. There are a lot of people who don't have any direction, who don't have that support system, who are really trying to make it on their own. But I want to encourage you and remind you that you don't have to do anything alone, because God has given you people in your life. He's placed leaders in your life who will help you. But a lot of times we're blinded by all kinds of situations that are taking place. So ask God to remove the blinders off of your eyes so that you can see who it is that he wants to connect you with.
And thank you, Lady Ashley. Erin Jones.
Yes.
I wish you had more time. I wish we
I
had more
know it.
time. Your information is rich. So guess what? You got to come back.
Okay. I would love to.
it's so much that wasn't said. I do
Right.
want to remind people, you can't take this. What I'm telling you, you can't copyright this. This belongs to Aaron. We we've got to be the community and not the competitor.
Mm.
Mercy
Awesome.
God.
No, I'm
Man,
gonna
man,
marinate
AK,
on that.
AK,
Girl.
girl, AKA Village.
Yes.
That is like, hey, and I love the fact that you also noted that pretty much it's just a flat out sin to move in independence. we need the village. We need the village.
Because the enemy will use that seclusion against us. You know, he'll
Oh
make
my-
us think that we're alone when there's people around us who love us.
We need the village. So let me just leave
He's the
with this
deceiver
note.
of the brethren. He is.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And he loved messing with the head, the mind. But the quote for Monday is one day or day one. You decide.
Mm,
One day or day one. You decide.
that's
Thank
good.
you, Erin Jones, for being a part of the Monday Motivation Monday podcast live. It has been a mere pleasure. This coffee didn't do nothing for me, honey. You did it all.
Thank
When
you
I tell
so
you
much.
I loved my coffee black and strong. But baby, you did that. And I thank God for you. And let me just say, I thank you for your authenticity. I thank you so much for your transparency. And for those that thought that you had it going on and that you were perfect, they now know that you are human.
Please, no.
And you still got it going on, sis.
Well,
Thank you,
you know exactly what I mean. You better let me say what I'm saying.
When you
But
start,
you know what I'm saying.
I'm gonna say
People
this one
can't be
last
offended
thing.
by. Okay, all right.
I was just gonna say, I just want to say this one last thing. If you have ever seen, and I'll send y'all a picture of it. My logo is a peacock.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and then a lot of symbolism for the peacock is for vanity, but not in the Christian tradition. In the Christian tradition, it's like eternal life. And a lot of times when they flex their feathers out, there's flaws in Mars and some of those, but you don't see it because when it all comes together, like it's beautiful. So that was really my motivation. Not I'm proud as a peacock because a lot of people say that, but I am proud though. I am proud of what I went through in my childhood. I'm proud of how I've survived some of the things that I've gone through in my life. And the word epiphany actually is in the Christian tradition also, is when the Magi, the three wise men, came to see Jesus and it was revealed to them. So it's about revelation. Sorry, right. my phone is on 10%. So it's about revelation. So epiphany is E is a play on my name because people call me that. And then epiphany is a revelation to self. And the symbolism is just, I'm imperfect, but I'm still fly. I'm imperfect, but I still, you know what I'm saying? I'm still bad. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to be, there's no such thing. Perfection is an illusion. It's not real. It doesn't happen except for God, with God. And, that's just what it is. So I am so I'm really, when I tell people I'm honored and I'm humbled that you would have me and that we could just have this exchange. It was just so awesome. And I'm gonna go to bed on a cloud. I'm gonna probably be in the bed in the dark, smiling so I'm
amazing
excited.
Dialogue.
Yeah.
It's amazing dialogue.
And I look forward to being back. And thank you for creating a platform.
Absolutely.
So we can get this village, even if it's got to be a virtual village until COVID is over, that we can get it together.
Right.
And we need to know that we are there because as Ashley stated earlier, I know I gotta go. I keep hearing it. But as she was stating earlier, it's like, where's my village? So people don't need to be saying that now. You know what I'm saying? We need to be a voice to a voice for the silent. And I also want to say what I didn't get a chance to finish when I was stating that people don't need to be offended by your humility, by you being so bold to make a statement as to, I'm not who you thought I was. I'm better. That's how I see you.
Yes.
And I think it's truly amazing. I think it's truly amazing. Let me just say to everybody that's listening, you need to share this podcast, because if you the people that share it the most, you're going to receive a giveaway. I want to remind you to follow us on all social media, Instagram and Facebook. Listen, love yourself, love everybody, and be an example. I'm Coach Dale. Have an amazing day.